In the dead of night, Alexander Harrington stood alone in his sprawling mansion, staring at the empty cribs where his twin daughters once slept peacefully. The latest nanny had stormed out just hours ago, her suitcase slamming behind her like a final judgment. "They're impossible," she'd screamed, but as Alexander poured another glass of scotch, he couldn't shake the gnawing fear that the problem wasn't his girls, it was him. A self-made millionaire who'd built an empire from nothing, yet couldn't hold onto a single caregiver for more than 2 weeks. Little did he know, a whispered conversation between his twins would shatter his world and rebuild it from the ashes. If this story is already pulling at your heartstrings, hit that like button, share it with someone who needs a reminder about family, drop a comment below on what you'd do in Alexander's shoes, and don't forget to subscribe to Trillionaire in Love for more inspiring tales that touch the soul. Alexander Harrington wasn't always the cold, calculating tycoon the business world knew him as. Born in a modest suburb, he'd clawed his way up through sheer determination, turning a small tech startup into a global conglomerate worth billions. But success came at a price. 3 years ago, his wife, Elena, the love of his life and the glue that held their family together, had been taken in a tragic car accident. She was on her way home from picking up groceries when a drunk driver crossed the median. Alexander was left with their twin daughters, Emily and Sophia, barely 2 years old at the time. The girls, with their mother's bright blue eyes and infectious giggles, were his only reminders of the happiness he'd lost. In the beginning, Alexander tried to balance it all. He'd take conference calls from the nursery, rocking the babies in his arms while negotiating multimillion-dollar deals. But as his company exploded, the demands piled up. Board meetings in Tokyo, mergers in New York, endless emails that never stopped. He hired the first nanny, a kind elderly woman named Mrs. Patel, thinking she'd be the perfect fit. She lasted 10 days. The twins, sensing the void left by their mother, cried incessantly, refusing bottles from anyone but him. Mrs. Patel threw in the towel, muttering about needing a break from the chaos. Undeterred, Alexander upped the ante. He scoured agencies for the best, certified childcare experts, former teachers, even one with a psychology degree. Nanny number 2, a young energetic graduate named Lisa, promised to turn things around with structured playtime and educational games. But Emily and Sophia had other ideas. They'd hide her keys, spill juice on her lesson plans, and stage dramatic tantrums that echoed through the mansion's marble halls. Lisa quit after 12 days, citing emotional exhaustion. Alexander paid her a hefty severance, but the pattern repeated. Nanny 3, gone in a week after the twins accidentally locked her in the bathroom during a bath time rebellion. Nanny 4 lasted 13 days before declaring the girls unmanageable demons. By the time the twins turned 5, Alexander had cycled through over a dozen nannies. Each one started with optimism, armed with resumes and glowing references, only to flee in defeat. He began to dread the interviews, the hopeful faces that masked the inevitable disappointment. His friends, what few he had left, suggested therapy for the girls or even boarding school, but Alexander couldn't bear the thought. "They're all I have," he'd say, his voice cracking in rare moments of vulnerability. Deep down, he knew the issue ran deeper than mischievous pranks. Emily and Sophia were grieving, just like him, but they expressed it in the only way little kids could, through chaos and rebellion. The mansion, once a symbol of his triumph, now felt like a gilded cage. Perched on a hill overlooking the city lights, it boasted 7 bedrooms, a home theater, and an infinity pool that shimmered under the stars. But the laughter that should have filled its rooms was absent. Alexander buried himself in work, convincing himself that providing financially was enough. He'd come home late, peek into the girls' room where they'd be asleep under the watchful eye of whichever nanny was on duty that week, and whisper good night from the doorway. Mornings were rushed quick hugs before his driver whisked him away. The twins adored him in their own way, clinging to his legs when he was around, but their eyes held a sadness that mirrored his own. One particularly grueling day, Alexander returned from a brutal negotiation that had secured a deal worth hundreds of millions. Exhausted, he loosened his tie and headed to the kitchen for a late dinner. The new nanny, Clara, a stern woman in her 40s with a no-nonsense attitude, had been with them for exactly 13 days. He could sense the end was near. She'd been complaining about the girls' bedtime resistance. As he passed the playroom, he heard muffled voices. Curious, he paused outside the door, which was slightly ajar. Emily and Sophia were huddled under a blanket fort, their stuffed animals arranged in a circle like a secret council. The room was a mess of crayons, dolls, and half-eaten snacks, but in that moment, it felt alive with their innocence. Alexander leaned closer, not wanting to interrupt. "Why does everyone leave us, Emmy?" Sophia whispered, her voice small and trembling. She clutched her favorite teddy bear, the one Elena had sewn a heart onto before she passed. Emily, always the bolder of the two, sighed dramatically. "Because we're bad, Soph. We make them go away, so Daddy has to stay with us." Sophia's lower lip quivered. "But Daddy doesn't stay. He's always gone. I miss Mommy. She used to read us stories every night." "Me too," Emily admitted, her tough facade cracking. "Remember how she'd tuck us in and say we were her little stars? Daddy just says good night from the door. He doesn't even hug us tight anymore." Sophia nodded, tears welling up. "Do you think Daddy doesn't love us like Mommy did? Maybe that's why he sends nannies instead of being our daddy." Emily pulled her sister close. "No, he loves us, but he's sad about Mommy too. I heard him crying once in his office. We don't need another nanny, Soph. We need Daddy. If we keep making them leave, maybe he'll finally stay." Alexander froze, his hand on the doorknob. The words hit him like a freight train. His chest tightened, and a sob escaped before he could stop it. He slid down the wall, tears streaming down his face for the first time since Elena's funeral. All this time, he'd thought the nannies were the problem, or perhaps the girls' behavior. But it was him. He'd been so consumed by grief and ambition that he'd abandoned them emotionally, outsourcing his role as a father to strangers. The empire he'd built meant nothing if it cost him his family. Wiping his eyes, Alexander pushed the door open. The twins jumped, their eyes wide with surprise. "Daddy," Emily said, scrambling to her feet. He knelt down, pulling them both into his arms. "I'm so sorry, my loves," he whispered, his voice breaking. "I heard what you said, and you're right. I haven't been the daddy you need, but that's going to change. No more nannies, just us." The girls clung to him, their small bodies shaking with relief. Clara, hearing the commotion, appeared in the doorway. "Mr. Harrington, is everything all right?" Alexander looked up, still holding his daughters. "Clara, thank you for everything, but your services won't be needed anymore. I'll handle this from here." She nodded, a knowing smile crossing her face. "I think that's for the best." That night marked the beginning of a profound transformation. Alexander didn't quit his job overnight. That would have been reckless, but he restructured his life around his priorities. He delegated more to his trusted executives, cut back on travel, and implemented a strict family time policy, no work after 6 p.m. The first few weeks were challenging. The twins tested boundaries, unused to his constant presence. There were tantrums over bedtime, spilled milk at breakfast, and endless questions about why Mommy couldn't come back. Alexander faced them head-on, enrolling the family in grief counseling. He shared stories of Elena, showing the girls old photos and videos, turning their pain into shared memories. One evening, as they baked cookies together, a messy affair that left flour everywhere, Emily looked up at him with Elena's eyes. "Daddy, are you happy now?" He paused, a lump in his throat. "Happier than I've been in years, sweetheart, because I have you too." Sophia giggled, smearing dough on his cheek. "We love you, Daddy. No more nannies, no more," he promised, pulling them into a group hug. As months passed, the mansion transformed. Laughter echoed through the halls, playdates filled the weekends, and Alexander discovered joys he'd forgotten. Reading bedtime stories, building forts, even dancing silly in the kitchen. His business thrived under the new balance. Turns out, a clear mind led to better decisions. He started a foundation in Elena's name, helping single parents juggle work and family, turning his pain into purpose. But the real victory was in the quiet moments, like the day the twins graduated kindergarten, beaming as he cheered from the front row, or the nights they fell asleep in his arms, whispering, "We love you, Daddy," before drifting off. Alexander realized wealth could buy comfort, but love built legacies. Years later, as the twins grew into confident young women, they often teased him about the nanny era, but beneath the jokes was gratitude. "You chose us, Dad," Emily would say. "That's what mattered." Alexander's story became a quiet legend among his peers, a reminder that true success isn't measured in bank accounts, but in the hearts we touch. In a world obsessed with hustle, he learned that presence is the greatest gift. So, if you're chasing dreams at the expense of those you love, pause, listen. It might just save your world. What an emotional journey, right? If this story moved you, smash that like button, share it with a friend or family member. Leave a comment sharing your own family story, and subscribe to Trillionaire in Love for more heartfelt narratives that inspire and uplift. Your support means the world. Let's build a community of love and connection together.